Is it coming on my big TV?
No, it's coming on this, so I'm gonna have to come over here.
Another part of the book that you write about that's really familiar to everyone.
Good evening. We'll give everybody just a few more moments to jump in. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. I know that your time is very important, so I'd like to stay on time so that we're most mindful of your schedule. I'll continue to admit people as they come in, and as you need to drop off, I encourage you to do that if you've gotten the information that you need. I am Kia Jarman. I am the facilitator for the Bordeaux North Nashville participatory budgeting process. If you are not speaking, if you don't mind muting yourself, but I will give an opportunity for everyone to speak if you have questions or thoughts about the process. But please come on in, get comfortable with us. I have put a link, let me do that one more time for those new folks who've just joined us. If you are not getting information currently about the participatory budgeting process and you're wanting to get more information, wanting to sign up to be a volunteer, wanting to participate in some way, I've put a link in the chat for you. It's a form. Fill that out for me. And that way we can keep up to date with you and you can keep up to date with us. So let me go ahead and first I'm going to share my screen. Let me also acknowledge, I see we have a couple of, or at least one steering committee or a couple steering committee members on the line. And so we're glad to see those folks. And then we also have Fabian Bedne from the mayor's office who will join in collaboration with me this evening. If there are questions that fall outside of my scope, I will ask him to jump in and answer those questions to make sure this is a most transparent process between the community and Metro government. Okay, so let me go ahead and begin sharing my screen so that we can start the process. All right. Give me just 1 second because I still want to enter a few folks in here. Okay, excellent. I'll keep doing that as the evening goes on. So as you all can see, hopefully if you're here, you are here to talk about the Bordeaux North Nashville participatory budgeting process that is taking place currently. And let me give you a little bit of information about how this came to be. In this year's budget, Mayor John Cooper approved $2 million for a pilot program so that Bordeaux North Nashville residents had an opportunity to design and develop ideas and proposals for the community. So those ideas, of course, would be infrastructure improvements in the community. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. After that was approved, there was a steering committee that was comprised. We have 18 members on that steering committee, and they have been working very diligently to make sure that this process is very much led by the community. So what is participatory budgeting here in Nashville? Here's a few things for you to keep in mind. This is a process that is led by the community, of course, and the primary benefit, the primary benefit is
well, the laptop plus my big one, it's actually
if you are coming into the room, if you don't mind muting yourself, if you don't already have that functionality, so that everyone can make sure we can hear. But the primary benefit of the projects that will be put on the ballot to be voted on need to benefit the public at large. You know, what does that mean? This is not something that's going to sit in your backyard. This is something that the greater public, in particular in the boundary of Bordeaux North Nashville, will have an opportunity to benefit from. It needs to be tangible and permanent. The way I describe this is something that you can experience, you can touch, you can feel in some way, and it has a benefit, again, across the broad sector of the community. The other piece is that you want to make sure that it's for capital improvement. I'm not here this evening to give you examples of things because I want these to be your ideas, but I do want to provide you with examples. I don't want to give you ideas, I want to give you examples of think about schools, think about community spaces, think about what you walk on, so sidewalks and streets, think about lights, think about all of the things that are infrastructure in nature. And then this last piece is something, last two pieces, I want to make sure that you're mindful of one and that the other one we're not concerned as much about in this particular part of the conversation, which that it needs to last at least 10 years. So again, this is permanent benefit that can last at least 10 years. It will need to cost $50,000 or higher. The reason I don't want you to be as concerned about that is because the next phase of this process is our budget delegates will come together and they will actually put the proposal together to make sure that we reach that mark. That means that if you submit an idea tonight, and let's say the note, the cost of that is $25,000, don't worry. The budget delegates will then combine it with something else to get it to that point. Or you might find that you thought it was going to cost one amount, which is not even necessary for you to figure out, but you may have an idea of something and you think it might be smaller in nature. And then by the time we speak with Metro and speak with all the parties that need to be spoken with, we find out it costs more. So I don't want you to be as concerned about that at this particular point, because I don't want that to keep you from submitting your ideas, okay? So here's what's happening currently in the process. So about July, the steering committee came together to develop a rule book. That rule book really guides the process. It makes sure that as the community, so here it is, that rule book, and we'll be ready to share that with the public very soon. But they came together to be able to outline and develop the rules that they wanted to make sure that included project eligibility, what the process would look like, the voting process, and so forth. So let's see. Let me mute some folks. Okay, perfect. Next is idea collection. That's the process that we're in right now. That's why you're here this evening, so that we can gather your ideas. I'll put a link in the chat shortly once I come off of share, so that you can begin to share those ideas. So since about last month up until October, about the second week of October, we'll be collecting ideas. This is a great place to put in a plug that if you have a group, a social group, civic group, faith organization that you want me to come and speak to, again, we can do virtual and we can do selected in person with some distancing and air circulation and all those things to make sure we're being most mindful of COVID right now. But this is the time where we want to collect as many ideas as possible, particularly from those who live, work, play, and worship in Bordeaux and North Nashville. Next is the proposal development. I talked a little bit about this with the budget delegates. The budget delegates will have to come directly from the boundary, and I'll show you the map here shortly. Once I come off share, I'll share another screen with you to kind of show you how to find out if you're within the boundary, within Bordeaux and North Nashville, Bordeaux North Nashville community. But the budget delegates will come together along with metro departments, along with the mayor's office, along with other public agencies to make sure that the proposal actually is feasible to go to the ballot. So this is just an example. This is not what it looks like because we don't have ideas, all the ideas in. So this is just an example from the Nashville Next project, where as you see here, there is a specific idea and the description of that, and then what the needs are. And then at the bottom, you'll start to see the funding estimates so that we can make sure that we're, again, thinking about how does this sustain for today, but also, again, 10 years. So we have to think about that as well. And then the next part of the project is voting. So in December, we're going to come together. We'll either be in person, we'll be online, or we'll be some hybrid. I'm not sure yet, but we'll continue to keep you in the loop about that. But residents will come out. These residents are 14 and up. I'm most excited about the idea that our young people get a chance to go into the ballot box or go online and actually have their voices heard, not just pushing the button for their parents, but actually at 14 and up able to push the button for themselves. And so that's really exciting. So again, residents only who live within the Bordeaux North Nashville boundary will be able to vote. So just quick synopsis. You can share an idea no matter where you live in the city, but the ideas that that are going to be looked at are going to be looked at by budget delegates who live in the boundary, and only those who live in the boundary can vote. So I just want to clarify that note there. So here's how you help the process. Again, I mentioned we have steering committee members who have been doing a great job helping to facilitate this process, make sure it's transparent, make sure that it is community led. Then we have logistics volunteers. Those are people like many of you on this call who say, hey, Kia, would you mind coming out to my civic group and speaking? And I've been doing quite a bit of those every week. I'm in the community talking, again, either virtually or in person. And so this is where you can, it's a very soft lift. It's not very heavy. You can say, here's my event, here's the day. You have 10, 15, 30 minutes, whatever amount of time, and then I will show up and participate in that way. We then have budget delegates. Again, those are people who live right in the community. So they have to live in the Bordeaux North Nashville boundary, and they will then be the ones putting together the proposals that end up on the ballot. And then in addition to those budget delegates, those volunteer delegates will have these committee volunteers who will help to pull together particular committee conversations around a variety of topics for those budget delegates. So whether it be something around, and I don't want to give a lot of examples, but something around, let's say, sidewalk improvement. So we'll have someone who can set up those conversations for us so that we can make sure that we're speaking to the right parties to make sure we have the entire scope of the proposal that needs to get approved. Okay, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit. You know, the residents are the ones who are going to make sure we submit the ideas. Volunteer budget delegates and Metro staff will help make those ideas into real proposals. Metro staff will make sure that they're coordinating some of the logistics or events, doing some of the work that I'm doing currently. The mayor's office is working to administer the process, just make sure that we're in compliance with whatever is needed, particularly as a liaison to Metro Council. So if at any point in time we need Metro Council to be involved or other Metro departments, they're really being helpful in that way. And then you see Metro Council, they will serve and support as they need to make sure that the constituents are being best served in this process. And so that's it for the presentation, but I want to show you a couple of other screens. So give me just a second. I'll come off here and then I'll take a pause and of course, hear your thoughts or hear feedback that you may have about the process. So I do want to share a couple of things with you. One, I hope that after this, you're interested, and so let me stick this in here, that you're interested in sharing an idea. So I'm going to put the link in for Hub Nashville. And so I'm encouraging all of you, particularly those who are, even if you're on your phone, it's still very simple. It should take you about 5 minutes or less to submit an idea, create an account and submit an idea. So click on that link and consider putting in your idea there for me. If for some reason you don't want to do technology, you can also email pb@nashville.gov. And those ideas, I'll make sure that it gets submitted. So just in case you don't want to use technology to use the Hub Nashville. I do want to show you one other piece here. Give me just a second. Okay, here we go. Share again. So I'll put this link in the chat for you all. This is how you can find out. Give me just a second. Lots of screens. We've been doing this Zoom for a long time, and sometimes we still have lots of screens open. So give me just 1 second. Okay. So this is the map for you to look and see if you're within the boundary. So if someone wants to come off mute and share with me, maybe not your physical address for your home, but if you work in the area, because that is also sometimes a safe way. So Mr. Fowler, I know that you, your offices are in the area. Would you mind coming off mute and giving me your address? And I'm gonna put it in here so they can see an example of that.
Yes, it's 3313 John Millette Drive. I'm sorry, 3315 John Millette Drive.
Okay. Perfect. So you see it starts to kind of auto populate here. So I'll click on it. And what this lets me know is your address is within the participatory budgeting boundary. Why this is important is because when we get ready for voting, or, excuse me, when we get ready to look at our volunteers for budget delegates, and we get ready to vote, this will be really important. We want to make sure that both of those opportunities are for people who live in the boundary. So that link is there for you, the map, so that you can see, just double check and see where you might live in relationship to the boundary. If you don't live in the boundary, so I'll put in another address here, then no results will pop up. So just so you can see what the difference is there. So I wanted to make sure you all see that. So as you share with people who, your neighbors, people who live close to you, people you work with or that you represent in some way, that they then know how to look up the map there. So let me also, while I have you, because I know I don't get a lot of time with you all the time. So I want to make sure. So I hope you all can see the Hub Nashville page about submitting a project idea. Again, very simple. You hit start new request. It will then pop up. I'm not going to submit mine all the way through just because we don't want a ton of tests in there, but you'll see it'll allow me to put tests in there, but put your idea. This can be an idea, one idea, and then tomorrow you say, oh, I have another one. That's okay. Add to it, or excuse me, add another request. That way we can start to see each of your requests come in. It's no problem. I'd love for someone to put as many ideas in there as possible and not wait to submit until you have all your thoughts together. Submit as you have ideas. If I click next, it then will take me to, if you already have a Hub Nashville account, which some of you do, if you submit things through there, then you'll hit log in. If you don't, then you'll put in your information here. Again, very simple, takes you about 30 seconds to do that. You'll then hit submit request. At the end, it will tell you that it has submitted. Excuse me, you should also receive an email as well to let you know that it's been submitted. So that way you can check yourself. If you're confused or concerned that maybe your idea did not come through, email that pb@nashville.gov email address, and myself and Fabian both get access to those so we can make sure we see those. With that, I'm going to take a pause and allow those of you who have joined us, thank you for that, to ask questions if you have them. And so just come off of mute so that I can see you if you have a question.
Hey, Kia, I have a question.
Okay.
This is Melvin Fowler. I'm with 54 Bordeaux Lifelong Learning Center. So my question, when you say 10 years, you mean the project should sustain itself for 10 years or longer. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. So whatever the idea is that you have, this is how we really know that it's a true infrastructure improvement, right? It needs to be something that will sustain for 10 years. Again, the budget delegates will do the diligence to also make sure that if there's maintenance involved, that that's included. So there will be some of that happening. And that's why in the proposal section, you saw it had kind of that fiscal note at the bottom, or the by year. And so they will need to really be accounting for those years. Yeah, great question.
And you will include that in that project outline and description if it needs maintenance over the years, if it was for technical stuff and things like that, correct?
Right. So you don't have to do that, right? So as a resident, you don't have to do that, or someone who's submitting idea, you don't have to think about that. Let the budget delegates do that work along with Metro. So the Metro planning department and other departments will really look at that and make sure that they're accounting for those type of fiscal needs. So I don't want anybody to not submit an idea because I don't know how much it costs, or I'm not sure how long it will last if I ask for this project or this one. So yeah, great. Thank you for following up with that. I don't want you all to think about that at all.
Awesome. Thank you.
You have the amount, or if you've done the diligence, because some organizations I've spoken with have members who've already done some of the work. They say this was on our strategic planning list, or this was a part of the process we were looking to do. And so they have already done some of that. Certainly, if you've done some of that work, please, by all means, share what you know. But I don't want that to be the hindrance.
Got you.
Yeah, and I'd love, Mr. Fowler, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'd love to come over and speak with any of the seniors that come into your center. So I'd love for you to sign up to be a volunteer in some way for us to come do that. Again, we can do virtual, but I also recognize we can do in person. So I'll follow up with you about that, but I had you on my list.
Okay, it's on my notes to actually reach out to you and invite you to Bordeaux, and actually also our advisory council as well. So look forward to meeting you in person.
Yes, I would love that. And so let me also drop this link again, because we have some new faces here. So if you'd like to sign up to volunteer in some way, or just to be on the email list. So some of you came from a variety of places. You saw it on the mayor's office, you saw it in North Nashville group where I shared it. You saw it a few places, some of our steering committee shared. So if you want to make sure that you get up-to-date information, fill out that form so that I can make sure I have your email address and telephone number, and we can contact you from time to time. I won't send too many, but I can contact you from time to time. Other questions from anyone on the line?
Hi, Kia. I had a brief question. How do you know the idea you have hasn't already been approved? For example, someone had told me one of the council persons had approved sidewalks in part of our neighborhood. That's the only time I heard that. I haven't seen any evidence of it since, but that doesn't mean it's not in the works just because I wasn't aware of it.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Scott, for that question. Really good question. So in addition to those $2 million that the mayor delegated for this particular project, there are other capital improvements that are happening in the community. The easiest way, though, I would suggest to make sure that your idea is heard is still to submit it. So even if you believe that it might be happening, you think it might be on the list for your council person to be doing something, still submit the idea. Because what this does a few things. Remember in the beginning, I said this is a pilot. So what it does is it helps me to go back along with Fabian to the powers that be to say, these are the type of ideas that are coming through and want to be approved. And maybe either we didn't have enough money for it. Maybe we need more money for it. So we need to be able to have the data. So I don't want us to not submit the idea because we think it might happen. I'd rather have it in writing, because the other piece is this gives a good track record for your council person. It gives them an opportunity to see what the concerns are in their area, particularly if they haven't heard from, some of the members in a while. So don't not submit the idea, but that's a really great question. There are other improvements that are happening, but still submit the idea.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else?
Hi, Kia. This is Paula Hemphill. How are you? I'm glad to hear that this is a pilot program and there are possible more funding that you can delve into. Because when I first heard $2 million, I thought that's not that big of an amount considering what infrastructure can run. But I have a few questions. One, as far as the budget delegates and the committee facilitators, who are those folks and how are we going to get a list of those folks?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So who those people will be, so they haven't been selected yet. People have just been signing up. So I put a link there for you to sign up if you live within the Bordeaux North Nashville boundary and you're interested in being a budget delegate, please sign up. And then I like the idea out of transparency of sharing who those budget delegates are through the process. Absolutely. We have just today, and I'll share it here in just a moment, launched a new website. Now, if you know Nashville.gov, and I think I can say this as a consultant, the site is .gov. So you can use it, but it's not necessarily going to be super beautiful. That's what I'll say. But it will have that information, and we would absolutely want to put the budget delegates on there so that people can see who they are as their neighbors. But as a reminder, budget delegates specifically have to live in the Bordeaux North Nashville boundary. So that map that I showed, they have to live in the community because they have the most interest in making sure that the proposals are as robust as possible.
Okay. And just a follow-up question. As far as this presentation is concerned, where can we access this for those who were not able to make your meeting tonight?
Yeah, so it is recorded, but I also recorded a wonderful video also over at Tennessee State University, and that's also on Metro Nashville Network. And so I'm happy if you sign up on the form that I put in, I'm happy to send a follow-up to this meeting, but I just have to know you exist. So if you don't mind going to that form, and then I'll take everyone that came tonight who signed up on the form, I will send you a follow-up email with this presentation. Happy to do that. Or the the Metro Nashville Network one. They're both really good ones and have good questions in them.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So I'm going to put that link one more time for you all to sign up. Well, I'll put it as many times as we need to. But so for you all to sign up on that form to say how you'd like to stay informed, whether it's that you want to sign up to be a budget delegate, whether it's that you want to host an event, whether you want to just stay on the email list. And again, the ones I see from tonight, I will make sure that I send you an email to follow up with this recording. So thank you for that question. I'm making myself a little note here. About budget delegates on the website. Once we've selected those people, And then I'll send recording just to keep myself straight here. Okay, other questions?
I do have one more question, Kia. So when you submit this idea and say it gets funded or get approved, how long is the funding? Does it depend on the agency or the organization to sustain that particular amount? Or is this something that this particular group is going to be able to keep submitting for every year or every other year, or how that's going to go?
So I'm gonna answer kind of the second part, and then I'm gonna call on Fabian to answer the first part. So what I would say is I'll let him answer the question about how the budget is going to sustain over time. But what I will say is that the goal would be that we're able, at the end of this process, there's an evaluation period, and we want to get feedback from the residents about how great it went, the challenges, where you want to see more funding. And so the hope would be, and I was even speaking with someone earlier, council person earlier today, and they said, once this process is over, I'm really trying to go to bat for more funding, right? And so we have to show that, of course, the residents are interested in this process and that there are more projects that need to be funded. So I will say that part, and then I'll toss it to Fabian to answer the question about how we make sure that it's sustained over time.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Kia, for doing such a great job explaining the process. And also thank you everybody else that is here today trying to learn about this. I work at the mayor's office, and I've been involved in participatory budgeting. So the objective of this process is to have a vote in December, and in January, get busy building all these things. So the idea is to immediately start to do this. Now, there will be some delays. One of the delays is that we really want to prioritize or find ways to hire local people to build these things. So we are going to want to make sure that local business people register as a vendor with Metro, so they can actually take advantage and participate in the bidding process. And second of all, there may be some legislation required. For example, when you buy a property, Metro buys a property, let's say one of the ideas is to build a pocket park, and that requires a purchase of property. That requires a legislation that goes through the council. So that will be another delay. But our goal is to build it immediately, because we want you guys to see your ideas being built immediately. And we're going to have a website where you'll be able to track all these ideas being built, and then show you that that whatever you decided is happening. So the objective of these items, the infrastructure items, is that they don't require maintenance. I mean, the idea is like that you know, the eligibility requirement is that they have a minimum amount of maintenance needed, because we don't want required through this vote to have to use the operating budget, which is the amount of money that you use for maintenance. So like a sidewalk is one thing, but if one of the items that people are voting on is something that requires that Metro hires 100 employees, that's just not going to work, because we don't have, this is just capital spending plan money. There is no operating budget money. I don't know that I answered your question very well, but happy to follow up if you need more clarification.
Did that get it, Mr. Fowler?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So I thank you for that, Fabian, for that clarity. I see a question in the chat from Kendra I'm going to read, and then we can respond to. She says, I'm a North Nashville resident and homeowner of my primary home in North Nashville. However, my state of residence is South Carolina. Do I have to be registered voter in Tennessee in order to participate and vote on projects, or does my Nashville address alone qualify me? I'm going to ask Fabian to answer that as well. What I will say is that the one thing I know you 100% can do is submit an idea. So you can submit an idea that then the budget delegates can look at. But Fabian, is she eligible with a primary home in North Nashville, but also her state of residence in South Carolina? Does that make her ineligible?
It's a great question. Voter registration is not required for this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to allow 14-year-olds to vote on the process. The thing that matters here is not if you own property or if you rent property or if you are homeless. What matters is where do you reside? Where do you live? If you need to live within the boundary that we show you in the beginning. If you own a property there, but you live in South Carolina, then you don't qualify. But if you live in the boundary, within the boundary, then you qualify. It's not so much about home ownership or property ownership. It's about where do you reside in terms of where do you live, you know, where do you live your life?
Thank you for that. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Thank you for that, Kendra, in the chat. So of course, if you don't want to come off mute and you want to use the chat, you're welcome to do that as well.
Hi, Kia. This is Simone Boyd. Thank you so much and Fabian, thank y'all so much for organizing this evening. And just thank you for everyone who's put in so much effort to get us to this point. Is there a running list of items that have been submitted in order for us to confirm that our item has made it to the list? Or is there a way that we can see that or confirm that our item has made it to the list?
Oh, great question. So a couple of things there. One, you will get an email from Hub Nashville that says your ID has been submitted. But if you want to check, if individual people want to check, you're by all means send an email to me or really through pb@nashville.gov, and I'm happy to pull what you've submitted and share it back with you. We don't necessarily want to share all the ideas that have come through yet, because I'd like to see as much innovation come through as possible before it gets to the budget delegate process. But if you have a question about, did my idea come through, or do you have it, would you mind sending me what I submitted? Happy to absolutely do that, and just send an email to us. I'm going to put that email address in the chat again for everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you so much. Other questions? Well, I hope what's happening, I hope that while we're having some silence, what is happening, and I'm going to put this down here again, is that you're submitting ideas. So my email should be going off right now. I'm not checking it with ideas that you have. As I mentioned before, please submit the idea you have tonight. You know, if there's something that's pressing on your heart, go ahead and submit that. And then tomorrow or a week from now, if you have other ideas, submit those as well. I also want to do another call out for volunteers. And this is the super light lift. Have me come out to your event. If you have a social, a civic, an organization, as I was just talking with Mr. Fowler about coming over to the Bordeaux 50 Forward so that I can speak with the seniors in the community and really get their voice. I want to do the same thing with as many students as possible. I have in I think a week or two, I will be over at Pearl Cone and working with them around the civics of this. I'm excited to talk about this through some of their government classes and some of their programming. So if there are students that we can connect with, if there are parents we can connect with, if there are faith leaders of any faith background or faith organizations, have me come to come out and just speak. So I can just do a wave and do a 5-minute, or I can do an entire hour. I'll let that be up to you all, how you want to spend my time. But the biggest piece, this is, if I don't say anything else, if you don't hear anything else from me, I want as many ideas in the system as possible, because I really want at the end of this to show a long list of things that we need to be seeing how we get funded for years to come. So I want to be able to go with that data point to say we had thousands of submissions, and we know that the 2 million, just to kind of put it out there, and someone already mentioned it a little bit earlier, we know for such a large boundary, such a large sector of our city, we know that 2 million is not quite enough. And so we've got to make sure that we are able to bring out that list of data to say, we want to share this with the powers that need to be to allocate more funds. Okay. So I really want to make sure I emphasize that as much as possible.
This is Marilyn Thornton. How are you?
Thank you.
Okay, I just went on the hub and I'm trying to see, is there a description of what the projects are? For example, people keep talking about sidewalks. Okay, that really sounds like a city issue to me, you know. But what kinds of things are the projects that you're talking about? You want innovation, you want that, but I mean, what fits in? You say you don't want things that have to be maintained. That's what I thought I heard, okay, from Fabian, that you don't want something that has to go into the working budget. So I'm trying to understand what, because everything has to be maintained, okay, even if you have to clean it. All right, so I'm trying to understand what are the what is the parameters? What are the parameters of the ideas?
Yeah, I can answer, but Fabian, I see you're unmuted, so I'll let you give some things that you've seen from across the country of ideas, because participatory budgeting has been going on since 1989. So that's the exciting part. We have lots of examples there.
I think he already answered before. I wouldn't stress about it. If you have an idea, just share it. Let the budget delegates decide if it meets the guidelines or not. But don't worry about it. If it's going to meet the threshold of maintenance or non-maintenance, or it's not something that you need to worry about. We give you that to give you a framework. I can tell you right off the back, if you propose that we use the money to hire a police officer, for example, that's not going to work because a police officer is not an infrastructure item. But okay, anything else, even if you are a little bit not sure, just put it in. We'll work. I mean, the budget.
Where can we find the guidelines? Okay, that's the question then.
There is really not a guideline because, I mean, anything that is buildable, that is like Kia said before, anything that is an object in the city, not on the right of way, on the street. It could be a locker on a school. It could be like a bleachers. It could be a community garden. The thing is, we don't really want to give you ideas because we are not allowed to give you ideas.
I understand, but there's no guidelines either.
Yeah. Yes, so there are guidelines, and I think that I think though, because I've worked on several of these, and I know many of your faces, I know many of you all have been a part of these processes. We're very used to in our government processes having very strict boundaries for where we can go. This is very brand new to Nashville, where we don't really have any boundaries other than, I've just placed them in there. They must take place in the Bordeaux, North Nashville community. They must be capital improvements in some way, capital infrastructure improvements. They must have a public purpose, so not just an individual purpose. They must be tangible. I always say this is kind of what you experience, what you can touch, feel, see in some way, and they must accomplish their goals within a one-time funding. I do believe that there, as you mentioned, there are going to be many things that have ongoing maintenance opportunities. Allow the budget delegates, as Fabian mentioned, to really work through those details. And allow other departments, so we're going to work with other departments, allow them to also work through those details. If they say, if there's something out of arts, as an example, allow them to really come to the idea if they want to do some type of maintenance or not within that process. So I would say this is very different than most other government engagement processes that we've worked on in the city. And so that's why I imagine it is so, could be so challenging, of course, to even dream or think as big as that. But what I will do, Ms. Thornton, because I also want to make sure that I provide some additional tools, if you will either put your email address in the chat for me or sign up for that form, and that goes for any of you, then what I'm happy to do is to send, there are a few other, there are many, but there are a few other cities that are doing this very project, who've gotten much further along, who've been doing it for years. And I'm happy to send you their link just so that you can see what's happening in other places. So that kind of helps us to get outside of sharing a bunch of ideas with you, but really just giving you examples of what other places have done.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I did sign the form.
Okay, wonderful. So I will make sure I have a note here, have a little running list of things,
Mhm.
and I will add that along with sending the recording. I will send links of a couple of other cities
Okay.
who are doing that, just so that you can be as innovative and dream as your heart's content. I'd love to see what comes through. But thank you for that. Really good dialogue.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else have questions? Again, I'm here until 7, but if you need to drop off, if you feel like you've gotten your questions, please, by all means. Okay, Kendra saying, can you really describe the different volunteer roles and opportunities available for, okay. Great, so there are a few opportunities. One is every one of you on this call are, I imagine, a part of an organization, a civic group, social group. You may have an organization in the community that you lead or that you are a part of. You can invite me at any point in time to come and speak to them. That's going to be our logistics volunteer. It's a very simple lift. It doesn't take but one time, or if you want me to come more than once, I'm fine to do that. But I can come one time and meet with your group. Again, I can speak with them for 5 minutes, or I can speak an entire hour. Just depends on what your needs are. So that's one. 2 is the budget delegate. Those people must live within the boundary. So if you need the link again to that boundary, I'm happy to share that in the chat. As a matter of fact, I'll do that in just a second, of where the boundary is within Bordeaux, North Nashville. So you need to live within that community. That is the heavier lift. Those are the people who are going to really take all the idea submissions and really sit down and make sure that it makes an efficient proposal. So they will work with metro departments, the mayor's office, and any other agencies necessary to see how this can become a proposal that then turns into a proposal for the ballot. So this is what will be voted on if they decide to do that. They'll combine ideas, they'll put the fiscal note on it, they'll do all types of things to make sure it's in compliance or that it's eligible per the rule book that the steering committee has submitted. And then the last volunteer opportunity is going to be our committee facilitators. And those are people who are going to help facilitate those meetings with the budget delegates to make sure that we're speaking with certain groups to make sure that, as I mentioned, that it's most efficient. So that's probably a medium volunteer position. That doesn't take as much work, but it will be some kind of logistical support there. So it's more than a one-time event. So I hope that was helpful to kind of give you an idea of that. And if you're interested in any of those, again, I'm going to put I saw we had a couple of folks join in. I'm going to put the link again, the form, so that everyone can sign that form and just click on what volunteer role you'd like to have. Would love to do that. I'm going to also submit, I just told you that I'd put the map again as well. So give me just a second and I'll submit that. So that's the map to see. That's the map for you to see if you live within the boundary. Roderick Townsend, thank you for that question. We have $2 million that is designated from the mayor's office, and all $2 million, very differently than other projects, goes towards infrastructure improvement. So this is different than other times where there has to be some administrative costs or there's all these other costs. This $2 million goes specifically for infrastructure improvement in our community. So thank you for that. Thank you for that question. In our last few minutes here, any other questions that you all may have?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
My question is, if you volunteer for any of these committees, based on some of what I'm hearing, does that put constraints on you in regards to submitting ideas?
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Yes, so it puts constraints on you if you're a steering committee member. So if you're on the steering committee, and so we have a couple folks on this call, which is why they've been quiet, because they also need to, they cannot influence any ideas. So because they're a part of the process, and so that's a part of their commitment. And then Fabian, correct me if I'm wrong, the budget delegates, remind me of what the rule book says about budget delegates submitting ideas. I'm not recalling off the top of my head. I apologize for that.
The budget delegates are also part of making decisions, and so they cannot submit ideas or be partial to any idea because they need to be independent and above board. But the logistics delegates, the other ones, they can submit ideas. It's just budget delegates or steering committee or me. I cannot submit ideas, or Kia cannot submit ideas either. So we are doing this to make sure that we keep the process from being influenced by the government or by the people making the decisions. Great question.
Great question. And it goes back to, and I can't recall who asked the question, but it goes back to being able to see a list of those budget delegates. So when those folks are selected, we'll make sure that they're on the website. So that way you can also hold that process accountable too, to make sure that you're able to do some checks and balances there. So Fabian and I, when we meet weekly, when we go through the submissions, we make sure that no one from the steering committee has submitted. And of course, there are some people who have who signed up to be budget delegates, but we haven't made any final decisions on that just yet. So if you know that you want to be a budget delegate, you might hold off until we get a little closer to that. So give us until about the top of October. And then we'll see where we are at that point with, if we get a ton of people who want to be budget delegates, then we'll make some kind of decisions about who needs to be in the process. But great question, Conrad. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's to hold the process accountable and to make sure that there's not any ill dealings. There's no one trying to influence how the financial component of this works. So I saw another unmute, so please unmute yourself again if you were. I think I lost you.
Peace.
Oh, hi.
Hi, my name is Jafi. I don't live out north, and I don't live in North Nashville, but I do have an organization called Recycle Reinvest, and we host the Jefferson Street Sweep every second Sunday, which is an environmental initiative to alleviate the burdens in the alleys and sidewalks, and we basically pick up trash. I'm curious to know, although I'm not a resident of the North Nashville area, are organizations that service that area, are they still able to apply for this particular opportunity?
So you can submit ideas. So as a reminder, if you live, work, play, or worship in the Bordeaux, North Nashville community, please submit ideas. It will be residents, though, who are budget delegates, so those people putting their proposals together, and it will be residents 14 and up who will be voting, who actually reside in the Bordeaux, North Nashville area. But if you have an organization and your organization does great work that you're doing, thank you for that. Submit your ideas. You're out there seeing things. Submit those ideas for more than one member. If you have an idea and then there's someone else who has another idea, please submit those, because you're operating within the community and have some investment interest in making sure that it is improved in some way. So please submit. But again, the vote will happen with people who actually reside in the boundary. Really great question. Thank you for that.
My last question, Kia, the presentation that you shared earlier, can you email that to yeah, I would love to have that so I can share with my team tomorrow, if that will, if you can do that.
Absolutely. I'll send it to you in just a second because I know I have your email address. If anybody else wants the presentation, when I send the email, matter of fact, what I might just do is just send it tomorrow along with my little list of things I had. If you signed up on the form, so I'm gonna put it one more time. If you signed up on the form, then I will take everyone who signed up this evening and I'll send them an email with the recording, with some links of a couple other participatory budgeting processes across the country, just so you get examples. And I will also send you the PowerPoint. Another way to volunteer, so thank you, Mr. Fowler, for that, that reminder. Another way to volunteer is if I don't have to show up. If you only have 5 minutes on a meeting, like you are going to do tomorrow with your team, just shoot me a message and say, hey, I was able to speak with my team and I shared your presentation. If you want me to, at any point, I have flyers or I have brochures, I can drop those off. Just give me a little notice, couple of days, and myself or Fabian can do that. If you have a physical location where we can put up signs, we have signs. We're happy to come with the tape and put them on the wall. You know, any of those opportunities where we can really continue to get the word out, we're happy to do. So just give us that heads up and we can do that.
So you're invited to bingo tomorrow. Starts at 11. So come on with your equipment. We'll be glad to have you.
You know what? I may drop in right before. I think that was a great reminder. So, because tomorrow I'll be at the Bordeaux Library.
That's right. Yes.
I'll be at the Bordeaux Library. So I may drop in right before then. If I can get time, I'm gonna drop right in right before then. I'm going to be a little disappointed because I can't do bingo the way I want to do bingo, because I want to sit and do bingo as well. But I'll come back another time, but I can at least come by and just say hello to people. And then the staff would be able to at least have a face with the name of what you share. So I'm going to send that to you shortly, Mr. Fowler.
Awesome. Awesome. You all are invited to bingo tomorrow. So, hey, come on.
Let's go. Location. Location, Mr. Fowler.
3315 John Millette. We're right over there off of John Millette in Bordeaux, right behind Bordeaux Food Market, and Dr. Larkin's church is right next door to us.
So right after you go to bingo at 11, at 12, from 12 to 1:30, I'll be over at the Bordeaux Library doing this same conversation. If for some reason someone you know is available in the middle of the day and wants to come during lunchtime, or they're retired and want to come hang out with me, I'll be there. I'll be there probably the next couple of weeks. So look out for that. And then we also are working with the Bordeaux Library and would love to maybe even think about this with the Bordeaux 50 Forward in putting some type of box or something to get ideas put into. So we also have physical forms just in case, again, technology is not your friend. That's okay. We can do that as well. So we're working on that part. So give me a little bit of time to work on that, but we can put a box or something out there.
That's great.
Any other questions? Yes.
One more question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a time limit on this funding? I got in a little late, excuse me for coming in late, but is there a time limit on this? 6 months, a year, or whatever that we should have this done? You might have already mentioned that.
No, we haven't. So thank you. Great question. Fabian, I want to let him come back on again. The money is there. So Fabian, what's the answer? Is it in the fiscal year? Is it kind of give us some guidelines there?
So the deadline to submit ideas is October 17. The election will happen in December. We don't have a date yet. The steering committee is going to decide that. After the election, the vote, we'll know which items get funded. And then we'll go through a short process of purchasing by the finance department. And then it will get started building. We wanted to build them before July. So when the next cycle starts, people can see the success of the prior cycle. But it doesn't have to be built by then. It could be that it takes longer, and it's fine. But I personally will push them to build it immediately because I want to brag about it.
And Fabian mentioned something a couple times, and he just mentioned it again, and I want to highlight this. We're not ready just yet, but there will be a part of this process where we're hoping we'll have some process for business owners who are in the area to be able to submit, so we can get them in the Metro system so they can submit bids to actually do some of this work. So he mentioned that earlier, but I didn't want that to be lost in the conversation. So if you know someone who does any variety of things, and we won't know until the ideas are submitted and the proposals are developed. But if there are people, we will want to start getting them in the system so they can start doing business with Metro, and they can do some of this business, because the idea here is that the money is spent in this community, and the money is able to stay in this community in some way relative to how we spend the money. So that is really important to the process, and I'll keep you all in the loop about that as that goes on. So I don't have all the details, but I just wanted to not lose that conversation. All right.
Thank you.
It's been so wonderful. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, we'll have another conversation tomorrow. I'll be in person tomorrow at the Bordeaux Library from 12 to 1:30. And we'll do this same type of conversation. You're more than welcome to stop by if you would like to, you have more questions. But I really also encourage, I'm kind of recruiting all of you as volunteers to just tell people, tell your neighbors, tell your colleagues in your workplace, tell those who you are worshiping with, if you're in physical worship or even virtual. And again, invite me to come and just share very quickly. This is very important to the community. There's not been anything like this in Nashville, and I'm so excited to be a part of this process. With that being said, if no other questions, I will let you all have a great rest of your night. There are lots of links here, but I also will send them in email when I send that email tomorrow. And then Mr. Fowler, before I get up from this computer, I'm going to send you the presentation I just did so you can share it with your team. If anyone else wants that, put your email in the chat because I can do that real quick. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, Lynn, I've got you. Thank you.
Great presentation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. And let's see. Paula, I've got yours if you're still hanging on. And Kendra. All right, beautiful people.
Thank you.